Actually. So my name is Fendi Nyaich. I'm from Uganda, East Africa, and I am so excited to join you. Professionally, I'm a software engineer. I specialize in web development, and currently I am doing a lot of technical writing. And my talk today will be around technical writing. Besides that, I welcome you to join us for PyCon Uganda as one of the organizers of PyCon Uganda 2024, which will be happening in October from 9th to 13th of this year. If you're able to come, please, I'll be excited to see you in person or virtually. So besides that, let's go right into my talk today. As already mentioned, my talk today is going to be around technical writing for developers. I just want you guys to take a moment and imagine that you've just developed a very beautiful software and your users need help understanding how to use it, or other developers would like to contribute to it if it is an open source project. What would the situation be like? What would the solution be in this type of scenario? And this is where technical writing comes in. Technical writing is important for both the users and also the developers. So by the end of this presentation, you're going to be able to have an idea of what technical writing is, and you're going to understand what it is like to have a technical audience, and then you'll have an idea of how to write for clarity and precision. And then I'll take you through on how you can structure your documentation if you decide to start a journey into technical writing. And then I'll share some tools and technologies that is commonly used when you're writing technical articles. If you're looking to consider technical writing as a side gig or maybe as part of your career, I'll take you through how you can come up with really a very good technical writing portfolio. Besides that, we shall have an overview of what we are going to look at the end of this presentation. And then we shall have any questions. If you have any questions or any queries around this topic, please feel free to ask those questions alongside. Now, in software development, communicating complex ideas clearly and effectively is really, really important. And technical writing will serve as the bridge between a developer and the audiences. This is the different audiences that could be the users or maybe fellow developers, depending on what type of technical articles you're going to be writing. My definition for technical writing is communicating complex information into an easy to understand manner. And it is also important in various industries apart from the software industry. There are technical documentation or articles in the healthcare industry, in the engineering industry, in the finance industry, and the whole goal and the whole concept is just to make information easier to understand for the audience which is targeted for. So the goal is to make technical writing accessible to a specific audience. The audience, as I mentioned, may include the end users, developers, engineers, or other professionals who need to understand that concept or the instructions. So moving forward, there are different types of technical documents. There is user manual and guides. These are basically instructions on how to use a specific product or a service. Normally, this type of articles are structured as step-by-step guides with screenshots included or diagrams. Then we also have technical specifications as another type of technical document. This is of a product, and normally it will include the features of that particular product or software product, criteria, and also it's important for developers, engineers, and designers. We have another type of document known as online help systems. This normally help users on how to use a specific system or software with a tutorial that's available online. Then we have reports. These normally present findings or research, project or investigation on a particular topic. We have proposals. These are documents that outline a plan, a solution, or an idea of a project. We have case studies. These are basically a real life example of either how your software project or your software product helped to solve a specific problem. Basically, these types of documents demonstrate the value of a given software product or any other product out of the software space. We have training materials. These are basically just used to educate users or employers on a particular product or service or a technology. Next one, we have white papers. White papers normally are research-based documents and they convey an expert view or analysis on a specific topic that is solving a specific problem. And then lastly, that is technical articles and blog. This is whereby you write blogs or articles for a specific audience with an aim of educating them or showing them how to use a specific product or specific tools about technical topics, trends, and also best practices. So after having to understand all these types of technical documents, as a developer, what do you think you can actually write about? How do you think that you can take part into technical writing and make it part of your life? Now, here are the things you can write about: code documentation, technical design documents, API documentations, bug reports and fixes, and tutorials, as well as how-to guides. Most times when we are learning how to code, we forget even to write about what we are building, even to sometimes explain our own code. But imagine you're documenting your code. It's going to be easy for you to understand that code 5 years later. And also, if you're explaining it to someone else 5 years later, they'll be able to understand what really was going on. So how can you get started with technical writing? First and foremost is you need to understand the basics, irrespective of what programming language you're writing in, what tool you're writing in. Before you even start writing about any topic, you need to be sure that you understand that particular topic. If you're going to start writing about Python, how to build something in Python, you want to be sure that you understand that topic of Python. Because in this particular case, the people who are going to read your article most probably would be the people who are interested in Python programming or businesses looking to use Python, depending on which type of technical article you choose to write. So in this case, I'm going to focus on technical blogs, articles, and blogs. So after understanding the basics of that particular topic, if it is web development, machine learning, DevOps, be sure that you have a solid foundation of that topic, and then you identify your audience. If you're going to write about DevOps, who am I targeting? Am I targeting an absolute beginner in DevOps? Am I targeting an intermediate person in DevOps? Or am I targeting an expert in DevOps? So that means that you're going to write about more advanced topics around DevOps. So once you identify that, you're going to choose your tools. These basically are just the tools you're going to use for writing your document. For example, Microsoft Word, Google Docs, the tools that you use in DevOps, for example, the tools that you're going to be using to write your code, the tools that you're going to be using to take screenshots, the tools that you're going to be using to make maybe a short video of that or illustration of that particular blog you think of writing about. Once you have your tools, just start practicing to write. Start writing. The easiest thing is you can start writing for absolute beginners. That's the easiest way to start writing. For example, I'll give an example of Python. You can start writing about how to install Python for absolute beginners. We know that installing Python is very easy, but imagine someone has no idea, put Python in their computer. That guide is going to help that person one time, one day. And if they read through your article, they'll be like, okay, this is a step-by-step guide. And as you practice writing, be sure that you're sharing your writing pieces. You can also choose a platform where you think would be favorable for you to write on. If you have a personal website, well and good. But if you don't, there are platforms like Hashnode, Dev2, where you can write on them for free and just build your writing portfolio on those platforms for free. And when you write on those platforms, there's also Medium. The good thing with it is that they already have an audience already existing. So if you use these platforms, it will be easy to find an already existing audience of developers. So when you practice writing, put out your work out there and then get feedback, both from where you're publishing from, maybe on Tech Twitter. Tech Twitter is really something that I recommend for everyone. Share your articles there. People are going to see it and then give you feedback, or maybe you had a grammatical error here. That is especially if you're starting to write as a solo technical writer, where you don't have a team to first go through your document and give you feedback. So get feedback and just take it as constructive criticism whatsoever. Don't take feedback personal. And then after that, build a portfolio. I mentioned that if you're looking to opt for technical writing as part of your career or as a side business, you can build a technical writing portfolio on those platforms or also on your personal website. And to build a portfolio to be able to switch into a career, most people hiring you for technical writing, they want to see your best 3 articles. So in this case, if you have like 5 to 10 articles, you're good to start applying for technical writing roles, as long as those articles are solving a particular problem or is guiding someone on how to use a specific thing. Like, be sure that you have at least those 3 articles that are going to be on your portfolio that you will send to a potential employer. And then apply for opportunities. And at the end of this presentation, I think I'll show you some of the websites where you can apply for technical writing opportunities and then continue learning every single day. So understanding your audience, we already talked about identifying your skill level. If you're a beginner in Python programming, there is no way you're going to start writing about advanced Python topics. So just understand, like, okay, I am still learning this thing, or maybe let me just document my learning journey so that I can inspire other developers. So that is understanding your skill level. Are you a beginner? Are you an intermediate? Or are you an expert? And then once you identify that skill level, you're going to have to use appropriate language. You provide context on whatever you're writing. So the reason for this is that it will help you to tailor your document or your writing style to just make it more understandable to the person who is going to read that document. Now, here are examples of audience-focused documentation. This is like beginner-friendly guide. These are step-by-step tutorials with clear explanations. I'll give an example of W3 Schools. Anyone, as long as you can read, when you go to W3 Schools, you're going to be able to really understand everything in there. It's like just simple step-by-step tutorials. And then another audience-focused documentation is advanced references. These are documents with detailed explanations with a lot of code, and normally it's just for experienced developers, and the topics are a little bit advanced. And then we have interactive learning. These are documents where like you can learn to a given stage, and then you have like interactive quizzes. I'll give an example of the course platforms. For example, maybe Udemy, LinkedIn Learning. When you're doing a course on LinkedIn Learning, you reach a point where they'll pop up to ask you like, how was this section, or maybe a few questions just for it to be interactive for that particular user. Now, at this point, I hope that if you're looking into technical writing, you now have an idea of what to write about. I want you to take this time to reflect on what you already know or what you're already learning and how you can share your writing pieces with the world, or sharing your journey and guides to just help other people who are starting up into the development world. So when you are writing, I mentioned at the beginning that you need to be clear and precise. And I'm going to share with you some of the strategies you can use for writing for clarity. So the first one, avoid ambiguity. For example, instead of saying click here in your technical doc, you can just say like click the submit button, because you're guiding someone to take an action. And then use simple and direct language. For example, instead of saying utilize, you can just use the word use. Now, be consistent. If you're writing about something or how to build a Python app, and somewhere you're using the word, for example, module, and then later you change it to component, no, you need to be consistent. If you are identifying something as a module, make sure that you refer to it as a module in the entire document. If you choose to use component in your technical document, be sure that you be consistent and use the word component throughout that particular document. You don't have to switch. It's going to confuse the audience or the reader, someone who's going to read your document. And then use active voice. Speak like you're speaking to someone directly. You do this. You go here, click here. Active voice is more clear and easy to understand and also engaging. For example, when I'm writing a guide on how to install Python, I'll use the word go to python.com. That is, I'm commanding someone, go to this website and then click on the download button. You can even specify where the download button is. Choose a version of Python you want to install. Click on it, click on that particular button. That is active voice, like you're commanding someone to like do this. It makes it easier for someone to follow along. So provide context and background. For example, when you're introducing a new concept, provide a background information or why the user needs to understand the relevance of this particular problem. For example, you're writing about Python for web development. Explain, why do we need Python for web development? Why Python out of all the programming languages for web development? So explain that context so that someone feels like, okay, I think Python is going to be a powerful tool for my web page because of the relevance, because of the context that you've provided in your documentation or article. Now, make use of visuals in situations where you're trying to illustrate something, you're trying to illustrate a concept. Be sure that you use diagrams or charts or screenshots to explain what you're talking about so that this person reading it is able to follow along. So next thing is testing. Testing does not only apply to code. You can also test your technical article. Like I mentioned, if you're writing on your own, you can do a two-way testing. You can get an expert to read through your document and give you feedback, or you can give someone who is really non-technical to first read your document and you hear what they have to say. If they tell you, I don't understand this part, be sure that you go to that part and then maybe further explain it so that it's very understandable for anyone else who will be reading that. Now, let's look at how you can structure your documentation. The importance of structuring your documentation, the first one is it's easy to navigate. Readers can easily go through, the website or your documentation, and it's easy for them to find what they want or the information they need. Then it's also easier for someone to understand the flow of information, that is clarity. And a well-structured document is more efficient to read because readers are going to be able to scan the headings, the bullet points, the key points, and everything. Consistency helps with readability. It's so easy for someone to read, and also professionalism. Then user experience. This means that users are able to engage with well-organized documentation as compared to a documentation that is not really well structured. So I'm going to take you through some examples of well-structured documentation. As you can see, there is Microsoft Developer Network, Python documentation, Google Developer documentation, GitHub guides, W3 Schools, etc. So let's just go to the Python documentation and we see how their documentation is structured. Now we are here in Python 3.1.2.3 documentation, and you can see this is the structure of their documentation. So there is what is new in Python, there is tutorial, there is library reference, there is installation of Python modules, all that is a structure. And then it's also going to be easy for you to navigate. For example, if you need documentation for a specific version of Python, you can just come on the left-hand side and then choose a documentation. For example, let's choose 3.6. And now here, because of the structure, you can see there is already a warning. This document is for an old version of Python that is no longer supported. So once you see that, and there is a link taking you to the recent. But now this is what we aim to look at. So when I click on installing Python module, you can see how there is a table of contents here where you can easily navigate through. So you can read through these, the key terms that are available in Python, the pip. You remember talking about consistency, and then there is basic usage. So you're able to identify like what you need when you go into a documentation, and then also it is like step by step. After installing the module, you understand the terms used in the program. You understand the basic uses. Like the flow is just coming from like zero level of understanding to a more advanced level of understanding step by step, and some common questions. Same applies when I go to the W3 Schools. So when I'm on W3 Schools, you can search for tutorials, or you can just see like how easy it is to navigate. Like someone, I'm looking to learn Python, you can see, you can just come here and learn Python, how to guide, CSS, Bootstrap, wherever topic. And once you go to them, you can see that it starts from like Python introduction, and it's so easy, and just the language used here is just very simple and anyone can understand it. So if you're looking to write about API documentations, you can have the structures of these websites as your inspiration. So here are the key takeaways from the examples you've just seen, the Python documentation and the W3 Schools documentation. Use clear headings and subheadings so that readers are able to navigate through one section to another. Organize information logically, start from the most basic to the more advanced. That is so for tutorials and how-to guides. Then use bullet points or numbered lists wherever possible. Include visual elements where necessary, and then provide links leading to, maybe it could be internal link or even external links that would refer the reader to somewhere to more understand a specific thing. Use consistent formatting. If you're writing your documentation, be sure that it's formatted consistently. If all your headings are H2s, make sure that they're H2s throughout. If your main headings are H1s, make sure that they're H1s throughout. If your paragraph, the font size is 12, be sure that anything that is in the normal text is size 12, that is consistency in formatting. Then include table of contents, like we just saw, that someone is really able to switch from one topic to another or from one section to another. And then also feel free to always seek feedback. I can't emphasize this enough. So let's look at writing effective code samples, especially if you're writing about maybe how to build something. Make sure that you first write that code and then test it and be sure that it is working pretty well. That's why you've seen that sometimes if you're someone who has ever copied code from the internet, you realize that sometimes you copy the code and it's not working. So as someone who is going to write a document, make sure that you first test your code on your computer, whatever you're writing, and then share it. So here are some tips of writing effective code samples. Make sure that you use a clear and concise examples, depending on the concept you're going to explain. If you're going to build a to-do list using Python, list down the features that we are going to need for this particular app. Then avoid unnecessary code that may confuse or even distract the readers. So provide context and explanation. For example, why might I need a to-do app? What is it going to do? You can write it in an introduction of your article, like today we are going to build a to-do list app, and then the reason for the to-do list app is to help us improve productivity, and it's going to have ABCD, all that. Give the context before you start writing the actual. And then use consistent formatting and naming conventions. In your code, this applies in your code. If you're naming a function in camel case, be sure that it is in camel case throughout your project. So include error handling and edge cases. So in situations where like a user or someone might encounter a certain error, tell them how they can resolve that error. Or put a note somewhere that this is expected to happen somewhere. I'll give you an example. Here is an article I wrote for Free Code Camp on how to add media to your HTML email template. People struggle a lot with the email templates, and there are some expected errors for this particular tutorial. And what I'll do is just write below, when you scroll down below, I have this. For someone using Hotmail and email clients that don't support HTML5, make sure that, let them know that this method or this way of adding media is not going to work for them. So that someone knows, when someone sees this, they'll be like, okay, this is going to work for a specific email template. So if you add a note somewhere, clients that don't support HTML5, like there are those obvious error handling and edge cases that you might encounter while writing your code. So next is use realistic examples and functional code.
whatever example you're using, it just has to be realistic and possibly relatable. And then keep your code samples updated. If things have changed or if you have modified a few things, be sure that you update the code samples in your document as well. So now let's take a look at some of the technical writing tools and technologies that you can use in your technical writing workflow. Now I'll just walk over through of these very fast. So we have documentation platforms, platforms like Read the Docs, and for the Dev platform, I've already mentioned Dev2 before. So that one falls under documentation platform. You can use markup languages, especially Markdown. You will use Markdown a lot in documentation. Even Dev2 platform, I think mostly it's Markdown, and then you can upgrade to other markup languages. Then diagramming tools, tools like Draw.io help you create visual representations of your workflow. And then version control, most importantly, Git. You can use it to manage your documentation files, and also if you're collaborating on documentation, this is going to be a great option for you. And then IDEs, VS Code, PyCharm, Atom, whichever has that, you can just use it for writing your documentation. And then tools like Google Docs, Microsoft Teams, or Slack, you can use this to collaborate with other people writing. So let me briefly take you through how you can build your technical writing portfolio. When your goal is to monetize your writing at a given point, you might need a portfolio, and the key is to select your best work. And it could also be your API documentation or a tutorial, but just make sure that it is solving a particular problem. And then create an online portfolio. Dev2 is free, Hashnode is free, Medium is free to start writing. All you need to do is just create an account. You can create a newsletter out of this and all that. So be sure that you check these out and then try to implement. And then include diverse samples. So when you're starting out with technical writing, you can include all the types of documents I mentioned. You can do API documentation, you can put how-to guides, you can even write reports depending on which topic you choose to write about as part of your portfolio. And then highlight your skills and achievements. So most cases, if you start writing, you realize that you might need a lot of skills, or you learn a lot of skills like editing, skills like designing infographics for your article, or just designing a header for your article, or researching, organizing your content, generating content ideas. Like, all those skills go into technical writing, just besides your technical skills. So if you've written for someone before, be sure that you include a testimonial and reference, and keep your portfolio updated, and always don't forget to share your portfolio with other people. So here is a summary of everything we have looked at. First is you start with the knowledge that you already have right now. If you're a developer, irrespective of which part of the development section you're in, just look at, what do I already know? What tools do I already use on a daily basis? It could just be your web browser, Google Chrome, for example. You can start writing articles around Google Chrome, how to do this on Google Chrome, how to install extensions on Google Chrome. It's that simple. You don't have to overthink what to write about. It's just normally just the basic things we use. Understand your audience. Keep that at the back of your mind in any article or document you're writing. And then structure your documentation. Use the tools and technologies to provide code samples. Apply all the programming principles you already know. And then create a portfolio. And lastly, monetize your writing. So I have an ebook that I'll be sharing with you guys so soon, which is called Freelance Technical Writing and a Career Guide for Beginners. This is going to be for someone who is looking to do technical writing as a freelance business or as a side hustle. Even when you have your job, you can do this. So I have this guide, and it's an ebook. And so there is another book. There's another book called The ABCs of Technical Writing. This is a blog by Hyman Tika. It's an Hashnode blog. And when you click on that link, it will just take you to that blog, and you're going to learn a lot of things around technical writing. And then there is Technical Writing blog by Zainab on Hashnode as well. And then there is another resource called Write the Docs. This is going to give you like all the basics. And then there is this YouTube channel of Amruta Ranade. Be sure that you check her out, and she has a lot of insights around technical writing. So I also mentioned that you can be able to monetize your technical writing skills. Be sure you check out Technical Writer HQ, Adeva, who pays technical writers, Oath, Write the Docs, community writer programs, LinkedIn, paid community writer programs, Civil, and also Twitter. Guys, make use of Twitter. When you're writing new articles, share them on Twitter. And because the reason I'm saying this is because I got my first technical writing gig through Twitter. So be sure that you share your journey on Twitter and you will get noticed and people will start reaching out to you. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy PyCon. And if you have any questions, feel free to connect with me. I'll be available to answer your queries.